tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, gam yachad, gam yachad, hine ma tov ma tov, hine ma tov ma tov, hine ma tov ma tov.
But good and pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together. And with that, we welcome the Shabbat. It is this magical hour of the week. We turn from the harshness, from the rashness of the week, into the serenity, into the quiet, the spirituality that Shabbat is offering to us. And what symbolizes it is the Shabbat candles. This week we had interviews, prospects for conversion. And among other things, we spoke about lighting the Shabbat candles. And second, lighting the Shabbat candles. And the question came, while at the other side synagogue, it's only women who do it. Here you might find sometimes that men are being asked to take this duty for the community. Anyhow, Shabbat is a feminine entity within Judaism, and if a man does it, then that man would need to connect to the feminine aspects within himself. And this week I'm going to ask the bride that got married last Sunday to do the candle lighting for us. We are on page 118 here in Shul. Please rise. If I can have the Bima camera, please, on. Come, Gabi. The Hebrew one.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzuvanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Yes. Okay. As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all those who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Just to you.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Not too hard, you see.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Have they heard me? 1:30, Lechu Neranena. They still didn't hear me. $1:30, Lechu Neranena. Come, let us sing joyously to God.
Lechu neranena l'Adonai, lechu neranena l'Adonai, 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 nahariya l'tzor yeshenu, nahariya l'tzor yeshenu, nanu,
let us sing joyously to God. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let's come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God. For the Eternal One is a great God and a great ruler for all divine beings. In God's hands are the depth of the earth, the peaks of the mountains are God's. God is the sea and God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend a knee before God our Maker. For the Eternal One is our God. We are the people God tends the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge these days. Page 132, Psalm 97. Adonai malach tagel haaretz, ismechu iyim rabim, ענן וערפל סביביו, צדק ומשפט מכון כסאו. אוהבי אדוני שנאו רע, שומר נפשות חסידיו, מיד רשעים יצילם. או זרו על הצדיק, ולישרי לב שמחה, שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו. Life is song for the righteous, radiance for the upright. Glory to you.
O zarua la tzadik, ul yeshre lev simcha. O zarua la tzadik, ul yeshre lev simcha. O zarua la tzadik, ul yeshre lev simcha. Ul yeshre lev simcha. O zarua la tzadik, ul yeshre lev simcha. Ul yeshre lev simcha. La 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 la.
Page 133, the Eternal One is sovereign, let the earth exalt and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love God, hate evil. God, guard the lives of your loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sun for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in the Eternal and acclaim God's holy name. A psalm. Sing to God a new song, for you have worked wonders. Your right hand, your holy arm have won you victory. Eternal One, you have shown your victory, displayed your justice in the sight of the nations. You were mindful of your loving faithfulness toward the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth behold the victory of God. Page 134, still in that psalm. Ariu laDonai כל הארץ, יצחו ורננו וזמרו, זמרו לאדוני בכינור, sing praise to God with a lyre.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור בקול זמרה, בחצוצרות בקול שופר, הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, ירום וימום לו. לפני אדוני כי בא לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט תבל בצדק ועמים במשרים, ירום וימום לו תבל ויושביה.
Cherubim is sovereign. People tremble and the earth quakes. God is great in Zion and exalted above all people. They praise your name as great and awesome. God is holy. Mighty ruler who loved justice. It was you who established equity. You who worked righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt the eternal our God and bow down to God's footstool. God is holy. Exalt the eternal our God and bow toward God, holy hill, for the eternal our God is holy. And finally on this sequence, Psalm 29. מזמור לדוד, הבו לאדוני בני אלים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש, כל אדוני על המים, אל הכבוד יראים, אדוני אדוני על מים רבים, כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון וסריון, כמו בן רעים, כל אדוני, 137 top, כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יחולל לילות, ויחשוף יערות ובהיכלו, כולו אומר כבוד, אדוני למבול ישב, הישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, את עמו, את עמו, את עמו בשלום. We're moving to the Lech Hadodi, but before that, maybe some people here can fetch a prayer book. It will be much easier for you to. Jude, my device is falling into a problem. Russell. Fall into an issue and needs to restart. Like that. Come. Thank you. Okay. Hello, welcome. So I just must continue. Okay, I'm just continuing. You'll tell me when we're back on space, okay? Are you with Stephanie? You have experience, okay? Brilliant. Okay. Improvisations.
לחדודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני
Thank you. Thank you. I'm on the Bima pulpit. On the Bima, the pulpit camera fell for whatever reason. I'm on the Bima camera. And here we are on 140 Mizmor Shir. Rory to you, and I'm passing the guidance to Scott.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך רנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון.
Move to page 142 and 3, Shalom Aleichem, and we'll do the bottom, the alternate reading. And so we understand that ordinary people are messengers of the Most High. They go about their tasks in holy anonymity, often very unknown to themselves. Yet if they had not been there, if they had not said what they said or did what they did, it would not be the way it is now. We would not be the way we are now. Never forget that you too yourself may be a messenger, perhaps even one whose errand extends over several lifetimes. We've now ended this phase of the service, the Kabbalat Panim and the Kabbalat Shabbat. We move to the next section, which is has the call to prayer and the Shema and the blessings. And we show that we're moving from one section to the other with the Chatzi Kaddish. So we move to page 144, and if I could ask you please to stand for the Chatzi Kaddish and for the call to prayer. Page 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, אמן. יאמר יברח חירותי וימלך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יש מרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל. שמי דקודשא בריחו להאמין כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעולמה ואמרו אמן.
And then over to Jess for the call to prayer on page 146.
Die, 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 die,
may be seated. We now move to page 148. And before I continue, the rabbi always makes the point is that this is supposed to be a spectacle. You can afford to sit back and be the audience when it's the rabbi leading it, but when you've got an amateur doing it, and particularly someone who was thrown out of the choir as soon as his voice broke, you really have to support me and chant and sing with me when I attempt to do it. So if I can be up here and do it, then you hiding behind your masks are able to do so. And then just on the mask front, just to remind everyone that sadly our new minhag is that we wear our mask at all times, including covering the nose and the mouth. So we now move to page 143, and we now have a prayer that helps us mark passages in time. We go from the profane, the holy of Shabbat, from one week to another, perhaps challenges ahead, from one phase of an epidemic to another. So we'll start at the top of page 148 and then move to the alternate reading on page 149. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv harvim v'chochma poteach she'arim utvina mishana itim umachalef et hemanim umsadir et hakochavim v'mishtorenu barakia ketzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or umavir yom umevi laila umavdil bein yom uvein laila Adonai tzavaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yamloch aleinu leolam va'et Baruch atah Adonai amariv arabim. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? We now move to page 150 for Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Hukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shobeinu, Kumeinu nasiya b'chukecha, v'nisma b'divrei toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu, ve'orek yameinu, uvahen nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Be'ahavatcha tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohel
now move to page 152, one of the focal points of the service, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod, Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Vaed.
We move to page 154 for the supplementary blessings, and if I could ask you to support me as I chant. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושנתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. And at the bottom of page 155, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. We then move to page 156, and we'll do the alternate reading at the top of page 157. If you wish, please read along with me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. We now move to page 158 for Mechamocha.
מי כמוך פועל אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכות
page 160 for the Hashkivenu, and we will do the part of it that starts at line 3 and then it moves down to the bottom. Over to Rory.
Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al Yerushalayim. Amen.
Thank you, Rory. Rabbi? You open the ark. We now finish that part of the service and we move to the next part, which of course is a central part of the service, which is the Amiga, and it's the standing prayer. So that's the cue for you all, please, to stand. And this is definitely part of the service that you need to support me and support each other in. Adonai sefatai tiftachu via gitahilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftachu via gitahilatecha. Now move to page 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Emoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Adol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei Hakol, Zocher Chazdei Avot ve'Emohot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אמן. Page 168. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל. לכלכל חיים בחסד, לחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים ומקוינו אמונתו לשני אפה. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. Amen. Page 170. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהלוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. page 172. You set aside the seventh day for your name, the pinnacle of creation, and you blessed it above all other days, more sacred than all festival times. So it is written in your Torah.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, צפנו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך. ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו לעבדך באמת, ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו, ותהה ליבנו לעבדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. May this day fulfill its promise. And then we're going to move to page 178, and move to 178 for the Shalom Rab.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ato melech Adon B'chol hashalom. Ki ato melech Adon
seated, and I'm going to now jump slightly before coming back. We'll move to page 181. We reach for you, our God, from our quiet places. May we stand still for a brief moment and listen to the rain, stand still for a brief moment and watch the play of sunlight and shadow on the leaves. For a brief moment, listen to the world. Let us stop the wheels of every day to be aware of Shabbat. Find the stillness of the sanctuary which the soul cherished, renew the covenant of an ancient people. We need a quiet space to test the balance of our days, the weight of our deeds against the heaviness of the world's demands. The balance is precarious. Steady us with faith, quiet places and stillness, where we will still hear our own best impulses speak. Quiet places and stillness, from which we will reach out to each other. We still find strength in silence, and with this strength, we will turn again to your service. Take a few minutes of silent meditation, and then I will ask Rory to bring us back with the Oseh Shalom at the bottom of page 180.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, Uyaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We've come to the end of the Amidah, and we're going to move to the next section, and we will have, first of all, a somber moment, and then we will have a moment of joy. So if we can move to page 511 of Mishe Beirach, the point where we can be in community with members of our congregation and others in the world who are going through a difficult time, either physical health or otherwise. There were some names in the bulletin. If there are other names that you would like to share, either in public or in your heart, now is the time to mention them, or in the chat, please put the names that are appropriate. And we will now have prayer for healing, and I'll ask Jesse to lead us through. All right, Jessica will lead us through that.
Mishe Berach Lavotenu Kol habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say
to thank Scott and to thank all the lay leaders who add so much, the lay readers who add so much to our service. Thank you, Scott. Thank you all. I'd like also to thank all the friends of Kyle and Gabriella who came here to see them receiving the blessing. What we're going to do now is I'm going to give a sermon, and then after the sermon, I will give them the blessing. The sermon is rather dense, so I'm inviting us all, mainly those who have the ability to write on the chat, to be very calm. And I welcome you all. Thanks for being here with us. My dear friends, Shabbat Shalom. Lately, in the last weeks, I've been in contact with Stephanie Wall-Courtney, the spirit and the mind behind Miss South Africa contest and organization. Last December, I had the honor of performing the marriage of Stephanie and her wife Jade, and earlier this year, I was also fortunate to conduct the chuppah of Stephanie's sisters, Caroline. And as it often happens with those whose life I touch, we became friends. I'm related to my people, and I do my best to stay in touch and involved in their lives. Let me share with you that at first, I was rather skeptical about the choice to manage a beauty contest, as it seemed to me to be focusing on the external rather than on the internal. And we had long discussions in this regard. I've learned that under Stephanie's leadership, Miss South Africa competition had blossomed into an organization that empowers the contestants and upskills them and teaches them to gain agency, to understand what their rights are, and to find ways of using their abilities effectively. During the last few weeks, we've learned about the difficulties that Stephanie and her team has been facing following the questions arising about the participation of South Africa in the International Miss Universe competition, which will be held next month in Eilat, Israel. It is saddening that their project should suffer in view of political questions that are not directly related to it. The people have found themselves in a situation they did not anticipate and fighting an unforeseen battle, which has caused them much turmoil and pain. By last week, I've already invited Stephanie and her team to join us, and in the meantime, we were faced with further pain, where the community was shocked by the assassination of Eliyahu David K., 26-year-old South African Jew from a Chabad family. Eliyahu was murdered on the way to his job as a tour guide at the Western Wall. When I heard this news, a verse came to my mind, a prophecy by Isaiah 60:18. Violence shall no longer be heard in your land, neither wasting nor destruction within your borders, but you shall call your walls salvation and your gates praise. These are two rather different cases: an Orthodox person who chose to move to Israel and was killed at the heart in Jerusalem, and a progressive Jewish woman who chose to stay here in South Africa and partake in the project of nation building. Yet, the common denominator between those two cases is that events in the Middle East have an increasing impact on our lives here. Now, this house of worship had known deep and bitter disputes regarding our approach towards and our engagement with what happens in the Middle East. My intention in this sermon is not to talk about the situation there, as much as to talk about us who find ourselves over and over again confronted by the repercussions of events which take place 9,000 kilometers away, events over which we have very little, if any, influence. This is thoroughly frustrating, and I can honestly understand those among us who would prefer to ignore the situation, remaining oblivious of it and so perhaps more comfortable in being undisturbed by such upsetting intrusions. Yet, the effect of these recent events indicates that this approach is no longer possible. Whether we like it or not, pressing matters from the Middle East have penetrated the relatively quiet and generally undisturbed life of South African Jewish community. We may have wished otherwise, but sadly, this is not the case. What is required of us? How should we respond? And what should we do to face this reality? I'd like to start answering this question from my personal perspective. When I came to this country in 2013, I discovered a dichotomy which still exists. The assumption that one should and could support either the Israeli cause or the Palestinian cause. This is a zero-sum game with powerful emotional resonances as it touches and destabilizes the foundation of one's identity, who I am as a person. Where do I feel secure? Where does my allegiance belong? These questions are pressing and often unpleasant to address, and it is hardly surprising then that such discussions frequently end in divisive manner. Now, as for me, in the general terms, as an Israeli, and given my specific background, I am a product of the Zionist project. For 6 generations, my family has participated in establishing the state and building the country. My grandparents, my parents, my 2 siblings, and myself, we have all served in the IDF. I was conscripted into the army from 1993 until 1996. Then until my arrival here at the age of 39, I served my country in uniform for 1 month of every year. That amounts to 2 hours of every day. Moreover, from an early age, I learned to take very personally events which occurred at the national level. That is what inspired me to participate in protest as a youngster, to turn to youth work and education as a profession in my early to mid-20s, and later to find home in the Israeli movement for progressive Judaism. I grew up and I am affiliated with those Israelis who strive for peace and democracy. In my individual capacity, I was involved in a variety of endeavors to promote these values. Now, this is not an election speech, so I don't feel obliged to set out my record here. Let us just say that my comrades, my brothers and sisters, Jews and Arabs, are still engaged, struggling together for a better tomorrow for all the inhabitants of the land. Naturally, these attempts do not get the same level of attention by the media as acts of hate and violence. Yet you should know that there is commitment among both Jews and Palestinians to preserving the flame of hope for all of us. I belong among these people and I share their struggle. It is my allegiance to these comrades which drives me to action. When I came here in 2013, I hoped that parallel with my rabbinic work, I would be able to become an activist, mobilizing support for the peace camp, the Israeli-Palestinian peace camp. That did not happen. My attempt in this field have mainly failed. Each time the matter came up, it caused much pain and distress to my community. And therefore, tonight, I speak to you in a very measured way, from my heart and from my truest consciousness. Indeed, I did not become a prominent activist, a peace activist, but instead, something else happened, not less marvelous and profound. Instead of solving the riddle of the Middle East, I was opened to the mystery of becoming your rabbi. My relationship with the people of Beit Emanuel and with our wider South African social circles has deepened, and I'm humbled and proud to be serving you. Yet I am also aware of the gap between us. We have different backgrounds. It is only natural that you do not share with me the depth and intensity of my sentiment regarding the Holy Land, where my family roots are, where I grew up, where I was shaped, where so many people I care about live. And so, since we all do share the distress and unease which are transmitted to us from the Middle East, here is the guidance I'd like to give you. The first piece of advice is to be aware of the powerful emotion this topic brings to the surface. People feel very strongly about this matter, strongly than they feel about other conflicts around the globe, even if those conflicts may have more destructive consequences than the situation in the Middle East. Please remember that when people talk about Israel-Palestine, they do not speak only about a concrete dispute between two communities contesting the same piece of land. They also talk about many fraught concerns that touch the core of their being. These are not matters which can rationally be resolved in a manner when one is hoping to win an argument with someone else. Such issues call for unjudgmental listening. And if you feel during such debate that you cannot offer this kind of unjudgmental listening, then you should withdraw from the discussion and hold yourself accountable for both your physical stress and your emotions. Let me be clear. If you feel during discussion about Israel-Palestine that your perceptions are becoming clouded by strong emotions, if you feel yourself likely to launch into accusation and assigning blame, it is better for all that you leave the discussion until such time you are calmer. And in such emotional state, you do not contribute neither to the cause of the Israelis nor to the cause of the Palestinians. The second piece of advice is to be aware of the context. If you rely on isolated pieces of information drawn mainly from one-sided sources, your views of the actual circumstances will surely be compromised. With respect to the murder of Eli K., for example, one should acknowledge that the increased South African immigration to Israel will certainly be reflected in all the statistics, including the most horrifying statistic of the conflict fatalities of the Middle East. Eli K. is the 12th Jew in 2021 who have lost his life because of the conflict. These 12 Jews are matched by 341 Palestinians who were killed in 2021. Each of them had a name, a story, dreams, and people who loved them. The death of each one of them, Jew or Arab, created an unfillable void in the hearts of their families and their communities. The total number of deaths caused by the conflict in the Middle East since the 20s of the 20th century can be calculated at about 25,000 Jews and about 95,000 Palestinians. 25,000 Jews and 95,000 Palestinians. These figures do not include people who were wounded, displaced, or simply traumatized. Nor do these numbers include people of other nationalities, such as the American Jewish activist Rachel Corrie, a member of the International Solidarity Movement, who was crushed to death by an armored bulldozer in Gaza Strip back in 2003, as well as many others from all over the world whose lives were cut short on account of this war. All this loss of life has not happened by a force of nature, but it is a result of a conflict created by us human beings. When I was the executive director of the Sulha Peace Project, I worked closely with the Bereaved Families Forum. In that setting, I met Robbie Dameling, a South African Jewish woman who was instrumental in building the reconciliation movement after the death of her son David, who has been serving as an IDF officer. I knew him. We crossed paths several times during the 1998 student protest in which we were both involved. He was someone who could be a leader of the peace camp, and his death was a great loss to us all. Robbie Damelin's principal co-activist at the Palestinian side at the time was Ali Abu Awad, a prominent Palestinian peace activist and a proponent of non-violence resistance. Ali had lost his brother Yusuf, who was shot by an Israeli soldier. And they used to share together the stories with various crowds, appealing for people to reckon the huge price of this 100-year-old war, taking from all. I remember clearly what Ali used to say: "This conflict devoured my brother, and I will do everything in my power to stop it from taking more lives." He also taught me the saying I often repeat: "I'm no longer pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. I'm simply pro-solution." And here I come to my third piece of advice. Invest in adopting a non-duality approach. Non-duality is the deep understanding which points to the essential oneness, wholeness, completeness, unity of life. A wholeness which exists here and now, prior to any apparent separation. This notion points intimacy, a love beyond words, right at the heart of the present moment of experience, the spirit of the great heart, as Johnny Clegg defined it. This notion points us back home, and despite the compelling appearance of separation and diversity, there is only one universal essence, one reality. Oneness is all there is, and we are all included in that. This is a hard concept to grasp, so I'd like to share with you some words written by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Buddhist teacher whose work has significantly influenced me. And so writes Thich Nhat Hanh in a piece called The Roots of War. In 1966, when I was in the US calling for ceasefire to the war in Vietnam, a young American peace activist stood up during a talk I was giving and shouted, "The best thing you can do is to go back to your country and defeat the American aggressors. You shouldn't be here. There's absolutely no use for you being here." He and many Americans wanted peace, but the kind of peace they wanted was the defeat of one side in order to satisfy their anger. Because they had called for a ceasefire and had not succeeded, they became angry, and finally they were unable to accept any solution short of defeat of their own country. But we, the Vietnamese, who were suffering under the bombs, had to be more realistic. We wanted peace. We did not care about anyone's victory or defeat. We just wanted the bombs to stop falling on us. But many people in the peace movement oppose our proposal to an immediate ceasefire. No one seems to understand. So when I heard that young man shouting, "Go home and defeat the American aggressors," I took several deep breaths to regain myself, and I said, "Sir, it seems to me that many of the roots of war are here in your country, and this is why I have come. One of the roots is the way you sing the word. Both sides are victims of the wrong policies. A policy that believes that in the force of violence is to settle problem. Believe that in the force of violence to settle problems. I do not want Vietnamese to die, and I do not want American soldiers to die either. The roots of war," teaches Thich Nhat Hanh, "are in the way we live our daily lives, the way we develop our industries, build up our society, and consume goods. We have to look deeply into the situation, and we will see the roots of war. We cannot just blame one side or the other. We have to transcend the tendency to take sides. During any conflict, we need people who can understand the suffering of all sides. Then it's very sweet. He gives the example of South Africa, and he's talking in the 70s, late 70s and the 80s. And he said, we need links, we need communication. Practicing nonviolence is a first of all becoming nonviolence. Then, when a difficult situation presents itself, we will react in a way that will help the situation. This applies to problems of the family, the community, and the whole society. These are the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. And so, as I conclude, may I make a very strong commitment to you that this community, this house of worship, has been and will be a safe space where people can share their pain and their hopes. We have here structures for political activism for both Zionist group and South African Jews supporting the Palestinian cause. Each person has the right to be heard, and each voice is important. Yet the real challenge is to move beyond the limiting labels attached to political views, to come together around our human identity, to come together to be the change we'd like to see in the world. What stops us from doing this is fear. We think it is hate, but it is actually fear. In the spirit of the coming festival of Hanukkah, let me assure you that a little light will chase away far more darkness. And if we truly orient ourselves toward the divine, this light will surely shine through us and make us an instrument of its peace. Amen. So be it. Amen. So be it. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom. I think it's a good occasion now to move to Gabi and Kyle. So, best weddings are the weddings in private homes, not in the big venues with hundreds of people. The venues are the small family weddings, and we had such a wedding on Sunday. Hello, Gordon. He's watching us, right? He's not watching us. Hey, Gordon. Never mind. Tell him I say hi. Hello, Pam. Welcome to the whole family. Welcome to the friends. And come forward. Let me give you a blessing. Can I have? Okay, 2, 3, 1, and whoa, 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 ay, 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 ay. Whoa, 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 ay, 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 whoa, 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 ay, 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 whoa, 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 ay, 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 ay. I'm getting close to them, so Okay, you can give me just that camera, Russell. Give me just that camera. Good. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Good. Good. Guys, you're the best. Enjoy the whole process. Really enjoy the whole process. Good. I'm going to read, from a blessing to blessing. I'm trying to make it new for myself, not to repeat the same text. Okay, so I'm looking what I'm going to read today. Lord of compassion, give us wisdom to look beyond ourselves and to see ourselves as part of the greater family of the house of Israel, as a part of the larger human family. Then we shall abide in faithfulness, truth, and peace. להבטיח לי לעולם, להבטיח לי בצדק ובמשפט ובחסד וברחמים, להבטיח לי באמונה, I betroth you to me forever. I betroth you to me in righteousness and justice, love and compassion. I betroth you to me everlasting faithfulness. We praise you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, to call us to holiness and invite us to be fruitful and multiply. And you summon us to life, to your service, inspire us to sanctify our life. We praise you, O God, to sanctify life And I want to read the seventh blessing of the seven blessings, first in Hebrew, then in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bara sason v'simcha, hatan v'kala, gila v'ina, bitza v'achva, ava v'achva, v'shalom v'reut, me'Adonai lo nishama, ve'yuda p'otzat Yerushalayim, kol sason v'kol simcha, Kol chatan v'kol kala. We give thanks for joy and gladness, happiness and exaltation, love and harmony, peace and friendship. Speedily let it be heard in the streets of Jerusalem, the city of Judah, in all four earth corners, the cry and joy and the shout of gladness, the tender songs of women and men, and happy sounds of wedding feast. Praise are you, because women and men rejoicing in marriage. So, Gabby and Carl, you took the invitation to multiply, and here we are. We're looking forward to the baby naming, and we're looking forward to your involvement in this community in the years to come. And as I said, I really enjoyed the communication and what you have to offer as young South Africans. And I bless you that you will go from strength to strength, that your roots will go deep into this land, and you will be who you can be and contribute. You know, you're people who love to give, you have a lot of giving in you. This giving will present itself in all that you do as a family, people, as a family, as father and mother, as spouses, as community members, and in all your capacity. Amen. So be it. I will give you the priestly blessing. Sing tov, mazel tov. Good, you can take a seat there. Thank you. So we like in strong emotional waves from here to there, Good. Yeah. Do we have a care committee person to read the names? If not, I will do it. Let me do it. Can you? Okay. We're moving to the Kaddish in 598. 598. It's a bit hard for me to read. Okay, thank you. Still a bit small for me to read. Maybe you can help me. No, you can. Okay, fine. Okay. So we remember this week Henry Applebaum, husband of Frida Applebaum, Claire Bacher, mother of Shirley Medwin, Carl Leinsdorf, father of Thina Nathanson, Harry Bloomberg, husband of Lydia Bloomberg and father of Barbara Golding, Hazel Cooper, wife of Eric Cooper, Glenda Levine, sister of Lily Sher, Iris Sprague, mother of Diane Lazarus, Berta Sachs, mother of Elvin Trocki, and Peter Stroming, uncle of Ian Stroming, and Sid Tubakin, father of Gavin Tubakin and Mandy Tubakin. May the memory be a blessing, and if there are further names that you would like to mention, please do so now. Please mention these names now. If there are any names in the Zoom or here in the shul. Anyone holding a yahrzeit here? Good. So let us recite together, page 598. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דיברה חירותי והמליך מלכותי, בחי יחון וביום יחון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו, והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל בני אדם ואמרו אמן. Good. Thank you, friends. Please be seated. Please be seated. And guys, believe it or not, November is over. Next week is Hanukkah. And now I'm inviting Leslie to give, no, me. Okay, fine. Okay. I presumed.
It's me, I think,
Okay, let
Rabbi.
me make it short. Okay, everything is fine. We all love you. Everything is fine. Okay, check the bulletin for all the announcements. But next week we have a grand finale. Let me make a list of what's happening. Hanukkah. 4:30, we have here starting the fete with some stalls. Come to the stalls. One of the stalls will be the anti-corruption week of the Defender of Democracy campaign, and they will be distributing their materials. So come and check. For me, it's important because I'm involved in the Defender of Democracy campaign. In 5-ish, there will be a meditation with Michelle Smith, our yoga and meditation teacher, in the youth lounge. And then there will be also J Kids to the kids. And then in 6 o'clock, we meet here. There are tables on the bima and people bringing their menorah, their Chanukiah. And we're lighting our menorah. There's like 20 menorahs or so here. Come and bring your menorah with. Then I'm give a sermon about the Defender of Democracy. It will be related to that. And we have somebody from the Defender of Democracy campaign coming to give us some greetings at the end of it. And the J Kids activity, so the kids will join us and get a blessing like we haven't done for a while. And then we're going to go and eat and drink. And that's it. On next Saturday morning, we are acknowledging the volunteers in the Hillbrow Food Drive, Sami Project. So we have the Riva Foreman coming here in her royal self to give a sermon, and the prayer will be led by Lael Betlechem and myself, and the volunteers will be acknowledged, and the supporters. If you ever made a sandwich to this project, do me a favor, come, you deserve an aliyah. This is like you're entitled, a good entitlement, not a bad entitlement. You're entitled for an aliyah. Saturday night, we have a youth activity. Sunday morning, we have the Cheder kids, the religion school kids, end of year party in Huddle Park. And with that, we conclude a chilled weekend, just a weekend. And Hanukkah, light candles, bring the light, be the light, think the light, we are the light, be the light, and so on. I think I should stop here. And let us conclude. God bless you all. God bless the people of South Africa. Let us conclude with Adon Olam, 625. Glory to you.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem kol yitzir nivra Adon Olam, Liet nasa v'chefzo kol, Azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam, Asher Malach. בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא אדון עולם, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. והוא אחד ואין שני, לעם שלו להכביר אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה אדון עולם אשר מלך. בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, בצור חבלי ביצר אדון עולם. והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנקסי ביום אקרא אדון עולם אשר מלך. בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. בידו הפקד רוחי, ועת תישן בהעיר אדון עולם. ואמרוכי גוויעתי, אדון עלה ולא ירא אדון עולם אשר מלך. בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Join us for the brucha. Shabbat shalom. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Everyone. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom to everybody, to Rabbi Timothy.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Maureen and
Greetings to
Kate,
Leno.
Catherine.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Catherine.
Hi, Lippy.
Hello,
Thank you.
Leva.
Shabbat
Hello,
Shalom.
Margaret. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Max. Shabbat Shalom, Lali and Ray.
Shabbat Shalom, Lali and Ray.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Tessa.
Shabbat Shalom, Leva. See you next week. Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
Hi, Jessica. Shabbat Shalom.
Hello, Shabbat Shalom.
Say hi.
Hi,
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Jessica.
Can't see you. Oh, there. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Shabbat Shalom. Not hearing me.